Thanks for joining us today for another session of Bitwarden Brilliance. Bitwarden Brilliance are our live stream sessions to get down into the details of some of the more technical features of Bitwarden. I have with me today Tony. My name is Jordan. We're both on the integration team here at Bitwarden. What we will be talking about today are some user and group automations and our various APIs. So I've got a couple of slides to start with, and then we'll go through some example scripts, show some stuff that you can do with the various Bitwarden command line tools and APIs, focusing mostly on user and group automation, but we have some other stuff to take a look at as well. But with that, let's take a look at our agenda today. Just in case anyone is not super familiar, we'll just go into a brief overview of Bitwarden. We'll then talk about interacting with Vault data using the command line tools. We will then switch over to talking about our public API and the Vault management API, discuss a few of our future initiatives, and then get into the demos. So real quick, Bitwarden is a password manager secured with zero knowledge and end-to-end encryption. We focus on being easy to use and transparent. So Bitwarden is available as a cloud-hosted SaaS service or self-hosted with our flexible deployment options. All of the Bitwarden clients, including these command line tools and APIs that we'll be looking at today, are built to be synchronized, so you have access to all of your data wherever you are. Shareability is a big feature in password management. We want to make sure that you are able to securely transmit data to your colleagues, keep it all in sync and shared. As a company, Bitwarden is customer and community centric, and we are available wherever you are, APIs and CLIs being a big part of that. So let's talk about the command line tool specifically. So the command line tool allows you to automate retrieving or editing Vault items, as well as creating and retrieving sends and Vault item attachments. The CLI can generate secure passwords and perform imports and exports of your Vault data. So that's a lot all in one bullet. Basically, anything that you can do in any of the other Bitwarden clients, like the mobile app, the browser extension, you can also do in the command line tool. So this is a really powerful way to bring password management into automation workflows, CI/CD pipelines, that sort of thing, kind of these non-human actor types of interactions with Vault data. In addition to the Vault data, the command line tool can list the organizations that you're a member of, list the members of those organizations if you have permissions to do that, list the collections that you have access to. And again, if you have the permissions in the organization, you can perform that final step of the organization invitation process, confirming the user into the organization. And the moved organization item that you may have seen in the various Bitwarden clients to take a password that is in your individual Vault and share it with your colleagues by moving it into a collection is something that you can do with the command line tool. So in order to start using the command line, you can authenticate with your email address and master password. You can log in with SSO, or you can use your personal user API key, which you can retrieve from the Web Vault. The command line is available as a native executable for Windows, Mac, and Linux, and those are also distributed via NPM, Chocolatey, and Snap. So it's really easy to get the command line onto whatever infrastructure you need to run it on, as it's cross-platform compatible. So an example use case, automation pipelines and CI/CD on either permanent infrastructure like a virtual machine or ephemeral infrastructure like a container that just gets spun up and has the Bitwarden command line already installed, or downloads and installs it at runtime. In this sort of use case, you would have scripts where you're shelling out to call the CLI. So for example, if you need to log into a server, you can have a script that utilizes the command line to go and grab an SSH key that is a Vault item attachment. So in addition to the command line tools, we also have two different APIs. So we have the public API and the Vault management API. So the public API is served by the Bitwarden server itself. So either our cloud service or your self-hosted instance, and the public API does not have access to any encrypted information. Obviously, if we are serving this API endpoint, since we don't have access to your encryption key, we can't serve the actual encrypted data via the public API. So the public API has endpoints designed to manage organization tasks, like inviting users, setting policies, or retrieving event logs. And authentication for the public API uses the organization's API key in secret, which the organization owner can retrieve from the Web Vault. Now, the Vault Management API is actually served locally by the command line that we were talking about earlier. So there is a verb for the CLI called serve. You can pass it a port and a IP address, and it will listen on that port and IP and serve this REST API interface. And because it's being served from the command line tool, it does have access to Vault data. Whichever user you log into the CLI with can make calls to that user's data. So if you log in to the CLI as your user, you can make calls to that Vault Management API endpoint and access any data via REST interface that you could access using any of the other Bitwarden clients. This is where you might provision some service accounts or non-human users into your organization in order to restrict what encrypted data is available to these sorts of automation endpoints. So in order to start using the Vault Management API, you log into the CLI, again, by email address and master password, SSO, or personal API key, and then make local calls to that endpoint that it serves. So let's talk about what you can do specifically with that public API. So for the public API, for both APIs, we've got a Swagger file, so you can look at exactly how to make these calls. But on a basic level, you can retrieve, update, and delete collections. Creating collections is not part of the public API because it is an encryption action. So that is done by the command line tool. The public API can retrieve event logs. So this is how you can export event log data to a scene. Create, retrieve, update, and delete groups in the organization, as well as users, and then retrieve and update users' group assignments. So if you have a complex approval process or mapping between users and groups, the public API is a good way to integrate Bitwarden into those processes. As people move around groups, you can make calls directly to the API to move them in Bitwarden. In addition to that, you can create users and groups via a single JSON import body. So this is the import endpoint. This is basically how Directory Connector works in the background. We've discussed Directory Connector on previous Brilliance sessions. It's a way to automate sending organization invites, creating groups, and assigning users to them. The Directory Connector just makes a call to this import endpoint of the public API once it has parsed the data from your source directory. Finally, the public API can retrieve and update the enterprise policies in the organization. So the Vault Management API that has access to the encrypted data is able to lock and unlock the CLI session. So when you log into the CLI, you don't necessarily have to unlock it, so it doesn't have all of the data available. You can do that via a REST call. It can then create, retrieve, update, and delete Vault items and fields in those Vault items, as well as creating, retrieving, and deleting attachments on the Vault items. We can do those CRUD actions on folders and sends, as well as the organization collections. So like I said, that is done via an interface that has encryption level access. So creating collections specifically needs to be done via the CLI or Vault Management API. And then the Vault Management API can also perform the move item to organization function and confirm the organization member. So that's that last step in the invite flow. To touch briefly on some of the future initiatives, what we've got cooking here at Bitwarden. As always, you can view our product roadmap on our community forum. We really appreciate any input that you have into that, so definitely go check out community.bitwarden.com and vote on some of the stuff that we're working on, provide us feedback in the product roadmap thread. Specifically when it comes to these sorts of topics, some future initiatives for automation that we are researching are the secrets manager for dev and DevOps workflows. We do have a beta waitlist out for that. So secrets manager is going to take some of that vault management API types of workflows in a new and more powerful direction. And we are also researching MDM integrations and SIEM integrations. So being able to automate some of those defaults and be able to automate getting those event logs out. So be sure to follow our release notes. There's a mailing list on the release notes page if you want to get notified as we push out updates, and keep an eye on the community for more information. With that though, let's take a look at a couple of scripts. So I'm going to pull down here. I've got a organization here. This one is on a self-hosted instance. In case you are not already aware, self-hosted and cloud has pretty much feature parity. So I'll be running these demos against my self-hosted instance, but you can run them on either self-hosted or cloud. So I got two users in here. I've got the user I'm logged in with, and I've got a user who has accepted an organization invitation. So let's take a look at some things that I can do with that user here. So if we hop over here into my Windows VM, I've got a bunch of these scripts written in PowerShell. We do also have or can write various integrations in a lot of different languages. I happen to have all four of these that we'll be looking at today in PowerShell, so we'll be doing this in a Windows environment. But as you can see over on the right-hand side there, what I'm going to be doing is utilizing the command line tool here to confirm all of the users in my organization who have accepted the organization invitation. Now, for this particular workflow, we do not recommend that you just auto-confirm users all the time. It is an important part in the kind of zero trust workflow to make sure that the person who accepted the organization invitation is actually the person that you think it is. So this confirm step, first of all, can't ever be completely skipped because there's a cryptographic exchange of keys that happens here. And someone with access to the organization key, usually an owner or administrator of the organization, needs to have an active unlocked session for this to occur. The command line tool is an active and unlocked session, so we can automate it. But again, I would really only recommend doing this during like your initial kind of onboarding of users in bulk. If you are quite sure that the people who are accepting the invitations are who you think they are, so that you can skip this fingerprint phrase step here. But with that caveat aside, we are going to take this script, which has my organization ID in it. It's going to read my master password from a secure string here. It is going to authenticate to the command line tool in the background, and then it's going to run bw confirm org member for each org member. It is going through a loop, although I only have the one. So let's go ahead and run the confirm accepted people. Going to chug away in the background. It's going to confirm my password. It's going to make that call. So if I go back here, hop over here, now this user is confirmed. So if I had multiple folks in that list, they all would have been confirmed. I just had the one. For the next one, the next script I have here is a little bit more in-depth. So for this particular use case, I've worked with several organizations that when they confirm their users, they also want those users moved to a specific user type. So in a Bitwarden organization, you have 4 predefined user types. It is a set of administrative permissions that allow those users to have more access than just to vault data, separate from the access control, which is which collections they can see and how much of that collection data they can access. We have the 4 predefined user types, and then of course we have the custom user role, which allows for full role-based access control. So as I was saying, I've worked with several different customer environments where they want to set a specific user type for everyone in the organization. By default, when you send an organization invitation, everyone comes in as a user, so they don't get any administrative permissions. In some organizations, they want everyone to be set as a manager. A manager has this set of permissions. Basically, a manager can modify who has access to the collections that manager has access to. So for example, if I set this person to all of these marketing collections and they are a manager, I'm just showing what manager has here in custom. This person would be able to edit who has access to these 3 collections, as well as creating new collections. So in this PowerShell script, what I'm doing is combining the command line and a public API in order to both confirm the user invitation, as well as move the user to manager state after confirming them. So I've got some boilerplate up here, so the script supports both cloud and self-hosted. I am setting up my authentication for the command line and API, getting an access token from the API, and then grabbing a list of the organization members. And then for each member in the organization, I'm going to confirm them using the command line, because again, the command line is the only one that can confirm users. I'm then grabbing a list of all of the users in the organization here, and looking for users who are in a specific access type and moving them to manager. So I'm going to go ahead and invite a new user here. Send that off. I'm going to grab my email, which is somewhere in this list of windows off screen. Let's see, is it here? Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and join my organization off screen again. Just create an account. And then log in so I can accept the invitation. And now when we pop back here, I've flipped from invited to accepted state. So that's what this particular script is looking for. This one is over in the API directory, and I've called it confirm accepted people, move to manager. So I'll go ahead and run that. Again, it's going to do a bunch of stuff in the background here because I've set up a secure storage for some of these credentials, and it's confirmed that it found my user here. And if we hop back over here to the organization, oops, it has found that user who was in accepted state. So it meant that they followed that invitation process and went ahead and accepted the invitation, and then moved them to a manager. So the next use case that we have is one where maybe those organization invitations have been sitting around for a while, and you don't think that people are going to invite it. You need to have a training set, or you don't think that people are going to accept those invites. Maybe you need to have a training session. Maybe they are invitations that have expired. Whatever the reason is, you want to remove folks from the organization who have not accepted the invitation. So in this use case, we are going to have a user who is in an invited state, but who is not going to move to accepted. And what I'm going to do here, pretty similar setup here. This one is just using the API, no command line needed for this one. It's going to go through, find anyone who is in an invited state and remove them from the organization, just to clean up my organization list. So over here, I have got purge not accepted users. Very quick, maybe suspiciously quick. Nope, it worked. Self-hosted server running a little bit faster than I expected it to today. So these kinds of basic user management scripts can come in real handy. Just leave them on your workstation, and whenever you need to perform any of these tasks to kind of clean up folks who are not actively using Bitwarden, make sure that they have the permissions they need, that sort of thing. Now, for the last script that I want to take a look at here today, this is another kind of onboarding use case. So you've completed a Bitwarden POC, maybe you've been using it in production with a couple of groups, but now you want to roll it out to the whole company. So what this script is going to do, let's say you've used either the SCIM provisioning or directory connector, maybe even the API, but you went ahead and created some groups in your organization. Those folks have also been invited. Again, they've been SCIM provisioned or directory connected, synced. You've got the people, you've got the groups, but now they need somewhere to store their shared secrets. So what this script is going to do is it is going to read out all of the groups that are in the organization, and it is going to create a collection for each group and then associate that collection with the group of the same name. So basically, it's going to read out that I have accounting, human resources, legal, and operations, and it's going to create collections called those four things and associate the accounting group with the accounting collection, that sort of thing. And because I've already been in production in this organization with a couple of other teams, this is my kind of last phase of the rollout. I've got these other collections here, but I just need to get these four other departments in my organization into Bitwarden. So again, we're going to be using both the command line and the public API for this because we are creating collections and encryption action. So that's going to be handled by the command line, and then associating the groups with the collections is going to be handled via the CLI. So we've got a lot of the same boilerplate from the last couple of scripts up here. We're going to get a list of the organization groups. We are going to grab the group name and the ID of the group. And then for each group, we're going to create a collection and then assign the group for it. So if we go ahead and run that again, I'll just point out here the groups that I have: accounting. I don't have accounting in here. I don't have human resources in here. Just make sure you can see I'm not cheating with this one. We're going to create collections for all groups. Oh no. Unauthorized. Aha. It is indeed unauthorized because I did not prep well enough. And I grabbed this directly from our repo and didn't set it up for my self-hosted organization. Let's just fix that. Got to have at least one failure on a live stream. There we go. That's looking a lot better. All right. It's going through and creating all these collections for us. Yeah, thanks. Not a live stream without a fail. Yeah, exactly. You can never prepare fully. So if we go back here, now we have all of those collections available. And most importantly, the collections are associated. This is a really big time saver. It's really convenient to be able to go into the Web Vault and make sure that each user or each group is associated with the correct collection, but just having a script that's going to automate it is going to really speed up your rollout process. So I also want to point out, although I did not set any of these kind of granular permissions, you can modify the script to be able to set whatever granular permissions you want. It's not just a thing where you can only set the association itself. So with that, some of the other things that we can do here, the Vault Management API is really very flexible. I don't have a whole lot prepared to go into that today, but just as a quick example, in order to sync, normally it would be BW sync, but I've got the Vault Management API running in the background, so I'm just able to make a curl request to localhost and the sync endpoint. All of those things that we went over in the slide, it is able to perform all of those tasks very easily. And with the Vault Management API, you're probably not going to be doing curl requests, right? This is going to be part of a much larger application logic where you're doing a lot of automation and you need to access those secrets. So really powerful tool that the Vault Management API has. A lot of what we've been going over earlier was on the public API side and the command line side. So just looking back briefly at those two slides, I'll pause here. Are there any questions from anyone in the chat? Anything specifically that anyone would like to see or get some more details on as we talk about the sorts of automation tools that Bitwarden has available? Just wait for the stream lag and see if anyone has any questions. So we are working on building out a collection of these sorts of examples so that you can follow along and get some ideas for ways that you need to automate tasks in Bitwarden. The integration team is always here to assist if you need some help figuring out exactly how to integrate some of these functionalities. Just reach out to us. Bitwarden.com/contact. We're more than happy to help you out. It's also, really cool to see, if you post in the community, any cool use cases that you've come up with. Always cool to see what the community's cooking. So, spread the open source if you can. If you come up with a cool script, definitely let us know. But with that, that pretty much covers the, mainly focus on user and group automation, but a lot of automation tools that we have available, again, both on cloud and self-hosted for kind of organization administration tasks, as well as automating access to secrets. So again, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or reach out bitwarden.com/contact. But with that, I will go ahead and put up a last song to play us out. And thanks for joining us for another session of Bitwarden Brilliance. Hope you all have a good one.